Okay, let's dive in. We're unpacking a topic that I think most people, they just treat as luck or fate,
Exactly where you are.
where you are. But what if we stopped seeing location as just this accident of birth and started treating it as maybe the single biggest strategic variable in building wealth?
That is the core idea we're getting into today. The mission here is to really unpack this concept of the location multiplier from the sources you shared.
Yeah.
The whole thesis is that your success isn't just about hustle. It's not just about your great idea. It's about the game board you choose to play on.
I love that framing because we always talk about optimizing your effort, but we rarely talk about just picking a better game board to begin with, minimizing the friction.
That's the critical word, friction. Location changes the friction in the system. And that friction, it isn't abstract. It's bureaucracy. It's unstable rules, poor infrastructure, weak demand.
Things that just steal your time and money.
They steal your time, attention, and capital that should be going into growth. So this deep dive is all about helping you identify environments that cut that friction way down and let compounding do its work.
So to make this actionable, the source material breaks it down into 4 layers. We're going from the macro to the micro.
Layer 1 is the big one, the country-level game board. This basically sets the difficulty level for everything else.
Okay.
It determines, how good the infrastructure is, how many customers there are, and your access to capital. It's the foundation.
And then even within a great country, you've got layer 2,
Yeah.
the city-level engine. Wealth doesn't spread out like butter. It clumps together.
Right. It clusters in these specific hubs. Think New York, London, Singapore. And that's all about the ecosystems and the sheer density you find there.
Then we zoom in again. Layer 3 is all about the rules and culture. This really decides the yield on all your effort.
Yeah, what you actually get to keep, what you can protect, even what you're allowed to try. So we're talking rule of law, taxes, and all those unwritten social norms.
And finally, layer 4. This is the advanced move, geo-arbitrage.
This is where you strategically unbundle your life. You split your business and your personal life across different places to basically get the best of all the other layers. You don't just accept the trade-offs of one location.
So, to put it simply, a strong economy just. It reduces the friction so that a good plan has a chance to survive long enough to actually work.
Precisely.
Let's use that first analogy from the sources because I think it makes it really clear. The seed and the soil.
Yeah, this one is perfect. So imagine your business idea or your skill is the best possible seed you could have.
Right, a perfect seed.
But the infrastructure, which is layer 1, that's the soil. And if that soil is, dry, rocky, and the plumbing is broken.
By plumbing, you mean bad internet, power outages, a banking system from the Stone Age.
Exactly. Then it doesn't matter how good your seed was. It's not going to grow. It's going to spend all its energy just trying to survive. In a rich economy, that soil is already fertile. The plumbing just works.
So if that's the foundation, let's drill down into the big national level drivers. The sources pull out 3 main factors that really set the speed of the game.
Okay, so the first is driver A, infrastructure. This is, like you said, the boring stuff that decides everything.
Yeah.
When we say infrastructure, we mean predictable, cheap transactions. If the power might go out or your internet is spotty, you can't make promises to customers and keep them consistently. You're always doing workarounds. That's pure friction.
It's wasted energy. And that leads to driver B customers with money, actual demand.
Right. Wealth creation needs buyers. Buyers with spending power. And get this, the sources point out that over 80% of all global consumer spending comes from just 20 countries.
20 countries. Wow.
So if your market is stuck in survival mode trying to scale businesses, it's just incredibly difficult.
And that brings us to driver C capital. A great idea without fuel is just an idea.
It's just an idea. And strong financial systems are designed to move that money to promising risks. We're talking about everything from a simple loan to venture capital.
And the scale is just mind-boggling. I mean, U.S. venture capital funding was over $250 billion in 2024. That's a massive engine.
It's a huge engine, and that allows companies to hire, to market, to make mistakes that they'd bankrupt a startup anywhere else. It creates this self-reinforcing loop.
It definitely does. And for the ultimate case study on how much the system matters, we just have to look at the Korean Peninsula.
It's the perfect natural experiment. Same people, same culture, same resources, really, until the 1950s.
And the results?
Radically different. South Korea plugged into global trade, protected property rights, and you get Samsung. North Korea chose isolation and central planning, and they can't reliably keep the lights on. The system layer 1 was everything.
Okay, so that concentration within countries, that brings us to layer 2,
Hmm.
cities. The clustering it's just intense. More than half the world's billionaires in just 10
Yeah.
cities. How does that even happen?
It comes down to something economists call agglomeration economies, which is a fancy way of saying things just work better when they're close together.
Okay, break that down.
So first you have ecosystems. If you're starting, say, a biotech company, a major city has the specialist investors, the IP lawyers, the right labs, the specific talent you need. It's all there.
So the time between having an idea and actually executing it just shrinks.
Dramatically, all your resources are a few miles away. The second piece is density, which creates time compression.
Time compression. I like that.
In a dense hub, you can have more shots on goal, more meetings, more pitches, more introductions in 1 week than you might get in a month somewhere else. It just accelerates everything.
And I guess the last part is you're just learning faster.
That's the learning loops. You absorb the unwritten rules of how to pitch, how to negotiate, just by being around it. You're constantly benchmarking yourself against the very best in your field.
Which is a perfect transition to layer 3, the actual rules and culture.
Yeah.
This is the layer that decides, pretty bluntly, what you get to keep.
And the foundation for all of it is the rule of law. If people don't believe their property is safe or that contracts will be honored, they just don't make big long-term investments. Predictable rules are a massive hidden discount on risk.
And the sources gave a perfect example of this, the time it takes to enforce a contract. In Singapore, it's about 120 days.
Okay, pretty fast.
Compare that
But-
to India, where it can take over 1,400 days.
1,400, that's 4 years.
4 years. Think about what that does to a business. Your capital is tied up for 4 years just waiting to get paid. That's monumental friction.
It is. That opportunity cost is a huge barrier. It basically keeps smaller players out of the game.
So next up is taxes. Always a sensitive topic, but we have to look at the after-tax result, not just the rate.
Right. That the question isn't just how high is the tax, it's what do I get for it? Some high tax places are still wealth engines because they give you stability, great infrastructure, healthcare. They reduce other kinds of risk.
And beyond the written rules, there's culture, the invisible rule book.
This is huge. It shapes what people are even willing to attempt. You see this massive difference in how cultures view failure.
Right. In the U.S., failure is almost a badge of honor. It's a learning experience.
Exactly. And that speeds up innovation. In cultures where failure carries a really heavy social stigma, people just don't take those big, bold risks.
And for a case study on how a country can literally design a new culture, look at Ireland.
A phenomenal example. They just decided to change their Layer 3 rules. They dropped their corporate tax rate to 12.5%.
And suddenly, it became a global tech hub. Apple, Google, they all flooded in. They basically engineered a low-friction environment from scratch.
And that leads us right to the most advanced strategy, Layer 4. Geo-arbitrage. The wealthy aren't just picking one location, they're playing on a global board.
Let's use that second analogy here because it's so good.
Yeah.
Building a custom computer.
Yes. You don't buy the off-the-shelf model. You pick the best component for each specific function.
So you start with the best CPU, the processor. That represents the rules.
Exactly. You incorporate your company where the legal system is super stable and investor-friendly. Think Delaware in the US or Singapore internationally.
Then you need a powerful graphics card, a GPU. That's your market. You sell your product where the customers have the most spending power.
Right. High-income markets to get the best return.
And finally, you get the cheapest, most efficient memory. And that's your lifestyle.
This is the digital nomad classic. Live where the quality of life is high, but the cost is low. You earn in dollars or euros, but you spend in a weaker currency. You maximize your purchasing power.
This whole strategy is driving what the sources call the Great Wealth Flight. Millionaires are on the move.
They are. And for 2025, the projections show huge inflows to places like the UAE, Malta, Costa Rica, the USA. They're all chasing that combination of stability, low taxes, and quality of life.
But let me challenge that cheapest memory idea for a second. When you're building that custom computer, what's the hidden trade-off of picking a low-cost lifestyle location?
That is the critical question. Is that cheap memory prone to crashing?
Right. What happens if the rules suddenly change? Or if you lose that social support network, you need to be resilient.
That's the point people always miss. They calculate the cost of living, but they forget the social cost. Or the fact that the top hubs have the toughest competition for a reason. You can't just show up with a dream of cheap margaritas. You need a plan.
So Where is this all headed? What are the future implications here?
Well, the big takeaway is that technology is making the world more borderless. It's reducing the power of location as pure destiny. The challenges of layer one bad infrastructure are being solved digitally.
We're seeing this already. Wealth is scaling incredibly fast in markets that used to be seen as too difficult.
Absolutely. Look at India. They just added almost 50 million new internet users. The total is now over 880 million. That's fueling explosive growth in tech and fintech because the digital roads are being built faster than the physical ones.
And Africa is probably the best example of this leapfrogging.
It really is. Mobile payments have turned basic phones into banks. They completely bypass the need for a huge, expensive network of physical bank branches.
And the e-commerce market there is said to hit, what, 500 million users by the end of 2025?
500 million. That's creating these massive new consumer markets almost overnight. So the big implication from the sources is that a huge share of the new millionaires over the next decade will likely come from these rising economies.
Okay, so let's make this really practical. What are some actionable steps for someone listening right now who can't just pack up and move tomorrow?
You can use this idea of borrowed ecosystems. You don't have to move to plug in.
Okay, so step one.
Pick your ecosystem. And be specific, not just tech. Is it AI for finance? Is it e-commerce logistics? Get granular.
Step two, you plug in digitally. You build that proximity remotely first. Join the online communities, follow the right mentors, read the newsletters from that hub.
Yes, you gather intelligence before you make a move. And then, step three is to visit tactically. Use short, focused trips, test the water, meet people, feel the competitive environment before you commit.
Before we wrap up, you've pulled out 3 key knowledge gaps. These are the questions someone should explore next if they're serious about this.
Right. First, how do local policies like city zoning or public transit spending actually interact with those big national drivers to create a winner city? The local level is incredibly complex.
Good one. Second,
Second, what are the social costs and inequality effects of all this wealth clustering? Because that can lead to political instability that could just erase all the advantages overnight.
and the third one is about friction.
Yeah. Beyond the big headline tax rates, what are the specific annoying regulatory hurdles, the red tape, that act as the biggest friction points for entrepreneurs in emerging markets? If you know what they are, you can design your business to go around them.
That's the full map. We've covered location as a multiplier, wealth clustering, and why the rules of the game matter just as much as how you play.
And the final thought for you to take away is this. Location isn't an accident of birth you have to accept. It can, and it should, be a design variable in your own strategy.
And the trade-offs to watch aren't just taxes and rent. They're the social costs and the reality of the intense competition in the top hubs. But understanding this geography gives you the power to choose.
It gives you control over how and where you play the game. Until next time, keep diving deep.